right, Jeremy Miner, we are live today. We've got a special guest with you. Typically, we go live every week and we interview a client from a completely different industry. We break down their sales process, and usually we bring a client from one of our advanced training programs out. This week, we were going to do that yesterday, but I got really sick, like sick as a freaking dog. I'm about 30% better today, but we did not want to not go live because we didn't go live on Tuesday because I was traveling. So I didn't do any training Tuesday for you guys, and we didn't go live yesterday. So we're going live today, and we're going to bring out 7th Level's own Chief Sales Officer, the man, the myth, the legend, Anthony Vazzaro from our Sydney, Australia office. He is here in our Scottsdale, Arizona office this week. He's been here for a couple weeks. We wanted to bring him out here, and we wanted to go over things you can do if you're a sales manager or a sales leader or sales executive or a business owner or an entrepreneur, or even if you're just an individual salesperson. How do you lead your teams? Or if you're a salesperson, how do you keep selling as much as you are or more in a financial crisis? In a recession that all of you are hearing about, that all of you can probably feel is coming with the banks and those type of things. And I tell you, like, I went through this experience back in 2008, 2009, 2010 at the heart of what was called the Great Recession with the mortgage, the housing crisis, the stock market collapsed, and the industry that I was in at that time, okay, which was a huge industry of debt relief services. I worked for a pretty large company, and half of our sales force got laid off like in a 30-day stretch. Okay. Now, I knew I was always protected because I was the number one salesperson in the entire industry. I had acquired skills that protected me financially from ever being let go. And if that company ever went out of business, I would have been the last person to go, right? Because I was bringing in probably 25% of the entire company's revenue, just myself, out of a sales force of like 400 people. But if I was the last one to go, then I would have got recruited by 100 other firms. Okay. So you can recession proof yourself by acquiring the right skills, and it doesn't matter your industry. You'll be able to outsell everybody, go do anything that you want. Okay. So we're going to bring out the man, Anthony. How are you, my man?
Me, what's going on?
You having some fun here in Scottsdale?
We're trying to, man. We're trying to keep out of trouble. You know how it is.
I have to find out, how is Scottsdale different than Australia?
Very different. Because I got to travel 30 minutes to go to the gas station and then another hour to go to the grocery store. So it's a bit different, man.
I know. You got to drive around here in Arizona. It's a huge city. It's all spread out. There's about 6 million people here, but it's like spread out. It takes you like 3 hours if you kind of went all the way around it. It's kind of crazy. A little bit different than where you live there in Australia. So basically, we're gonna talk about how to protect yourself. How do you lead your sales teams throughout a financial crisis? I can tell you, if you don't know how to do this, you're going to run into some major problems here in the next 3, 6, 12 months plus, because it is coming. I think everybody knows it. Now, if you are like, who is this guy going live? Real quick, my name is Jeremy Miner. I'm the founder of 7th Level. Now, if you don't know, if you've been living underneath a rock for the past 3 years, 7th Level is a sales training organization that trains salespeople exactly like you watching us right now. So we train salespeople like you, sales executives like you, coaches like you, consultants like you, business owners, okay, VPs of sales, chief sales officers, sales executives, and we train you and your teams specific skilled questions and techniques that work with human behavior rather than work against it. We'll talk about that here in a second, all right? That's going to be a big part of leading your team. Those are called neuro-emotional persuasion questions. Now, we have to teach you the right tonality. It's not just the questioning, but it's the right tone as well, because there's certain questions in your sales process that require more of a curious tone. Like, John, can you walk me through? See, that's a curious tone. Hopefully my voice can sound it. I've lost half my voice with this cold. There's certain questions in your sales process that require more of a skeptical or challenging tone. It's more of a skeptical tone. There's other questions in your sales process that require more of a concerned tone, a tone that shows more empathy. So we teach you the right tonality, the right questions that cause your prospects to want to open up, to want to go below the surface, because that's where the sale's made. Now, if you're on the live right now, I want you to go down to the bottom of your phone and I want you to post #live. So if you're on the live right now, go post #live, okay? And if you're on the replay, I want you to go post #replay. So I better see tons of #lives and I better see tons of hashtag replays. All right. Because I'm not going to have Anthony share you what to do to lead yourself through a financial crisis that's coming. All right. So smash the heart button. I also want you to smash the heart button. So go to your phone right now. I know you're on the phone. Go smash the heart button, smash the like button. I better see hundreds of smashed likes, and I better see hundreds of smashed hearts. Otherwise, me and Anthony are just going to walk across the street to the golf course over here, and we're just going to start golfing. It's a nice day. It's 68 degrees here in Scottsdale. Good Lord. It's fun. All right. Smash the heart button, smash the like button. Now, you want to start acquiring skills that work with human behavior so you can sell more. You want to be like our clients who are in your same industry that are making 2, 3, 5 times more than what you are right now. I can assure you, we are training salespeople in your industry that are doing that every single day. Then message me directly right now. So if you want to start making your first 10 grand a month in commissions, your first 15 grand a month in commissions, your first 20, 25 grand every single month, maybe you want to start making 30 or 40 or 50 grand every single month in commissions with what you sell now. I can assure you we are training people in your industry that make that every single month, month after month, okay? Message me directly right now. So if you're in the Facebook group Sales Revolution, we've got about 56,000 of you in there. If you're on the Facebook business page, we've got about 90,000 on there. If you're on our YouTube channel, LinkedIn, my Facebook, message me directly right now. And either myself or one of my stunt doubles will message you back some different training options we have for your industry if you want to make that type of money every month. All right, Anthony, nobody cares about me. They just care about the genius over here. Where should we start?
Let's start with talking about, like, first of all, like why are we talking about this, right? So I think especially in sales, if you're a sales rep, if you're a sales manager, VP of sales, or you're a business owner right now, things are changing. We can all agree with that. I've seen a massive shift over the past couple of months, with the banks collapsing. We're seeing, what are we seeing, Jeremy? We're seeing show rates, decrease.
We're seeing lenders. Yeah, we're seeing lenders, their requirements might have been a 650 credit score. Now, a lot of lenders are going above 700. A lot of them are going above 730. So even like, I was listening to, I think, Bloomberg this morning on the way to work, and they were saying in the last, I want to say 60 days, car dealerships, let's just talk about that industry. They are rejecting credit applications. It's like their rejection for credit applications has more than doubled in the last 60 days. More than doubled. That's only going to get worse. I can assure you, when I was in sales, when we went through the lending, the 2008 to really 2011, 12 debacle, the Great Recession here in the United States, lending was tough to get. Like, you had to have like 725 or above to get approved for anything. So those days are coming back right now. That's one of the things we're already noticing. Yeah,
and then I'm even seeing the past week, I had one of our clients reach out to us that we're doing some advanced sales training with. They went from an 80% approval rate on financing, that's dropped down to 29%. And that's happened within 2 weeks. Now, for a business that's very reliant on their front end cash coming through financing, if your sales team don't have the skills, they're not equipped with other tools to make more sales and get more out of their ecosystem, well, they're going to struggle, right?
You're going to really struggle. Yeah, one thing that we all have to understand it. Yeah, can you hear me? You're kind of cutting out a little bit, Anthony.
We're good. We're back.
Okay. So one thing, I want to make sure it's easy to sell when we're in an economy like we were the past, I would say probably 5-6 years, probably since like 2016, 2015, really. From 2015 until probably about a year ago, economy was pretty good besides inflation the last couple of years ago. So it's much easier to sell when the economy is going well. But when the economy starts to contract, which it already has been the past several months, I don't know if you guys are noticing that, when things are, 15% more expensive, and people are only getting paid 3 to 4% more than they were the year before, it just doesn't match up with the average consumer. We all have to realize that. That affects business and, consumers, right? So every misgiving you have, like every weakness you have in your sales ability during a time of when the economy contracts, will only be magnified times 10, because the laydown sales you've been getting, guess what's going to happen? They're going to shrink to almost hardly anything. Like the laydown sales I got during the Great Recession, before that, I mean, when the Great Recession happened, they went down probably at least 50 to 60%. Like laydowns just were few and far between. So any misgivings, any mishaps in your sales process and your sales ability will only be magnified by 10 And your sales teams are really going to struggle because the financing is going to be harder for them to get approved. And the average consumer is going to be more scared. They're going to have more uncertainty. So they're going to feel it's more risky to make buying decisions because they have uncertainty. Are they going to lose their job? Are things going to get too expensive? If they're a business, they're going to have more uncertainty about their growth, right? Because they're going to be concerned about, are they going to have enough revenue? So it's going to become tougher and tougher to sell if you keep saying the same things, asking the same questions you have that have gotten you here, and it starts to become really tough to sell. Well, guess what? You're not just going to stay at the same level. Where are you going to go? Your income is going to start going down. If you're an individual salesperson, if you're a company, your revenue is going to start going down, right, Anthony?
Yeah, exactly right. And like, you've experienced this back, a few years ago, just a few years ago, Jeremy.
When you were probably in high school.
Exactly. Now, one thing for me, right, and me coming into the position I'm in now, like I had a similar experience. So in my first 2 years in sales, I generated over $15 million in selling. And this is coming from my first sales job. Now, this was in 2019, just before COVID hit. So in 2019, I generated, it was about 4 million in sales. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit and came in. And I was in a niche, Jeremy, that the industry I was in was healthcare practices, which all had to shut down. Right. So I was selling a B2C service, helping businesses grow their businesses in an industry where everyone is shrinking. So as a sales rep, that's in my second year. What did I do? And this is where I had to learn the skills, which is why we're installing that in other businesses now on how to survive. Now that year, as soon as COVID hit, that second year, I generated $10 million in selling. I was almost averaging about $1 million a month, aside from the Christmas period. And then what I instilled it down to was two things, is the skill set and then the activity. When in a time like this, and in a time like we're seeing coming in now, if you're a rep that was just reliant on, let's say, skill level, that closed the laydowns, and you're speaking to the prospects the same way you were speaking to them the past 2 years, like you're gonna suffer. And that's one aspect. The other aspect is the activity. If you've got the skill set, what else can you do with that skill set, which we're going to touch a bit on today, to make sure that you're not just relying on being a top skilled rep? What can you do from an activity standpoint and a process standpoint to really maximize your pipeline? Yeah.
Let's talk about the process and the activity point, and then we'll jump into the skill point over the next few minutes. So let's start there with the process and activity point. So most of you, and some of you might not know, Seventh Level also has a division of the company where we do done-for-you sales for different types of industries and different companies, where we'll bring in salespeople from our firm and we actually do the sales for that company. Okay, so we do all their sales management. Those companies don't have to do anything. So let's talk about the processes and everything that we've developed to ensure those businesses are financially protected during the upcoming financial crisis that's about to hit.
Yeah, I think let's start with the most important thing. So if we're going to walk into a business, what's the first thing we look at? All right. The first thing I look at when I walk into a business, I go to the sales manager, I go to the business owner, I go to the director of sales, show me the numbers. Yeah. Starting with number one, show me the data. And you're going to be surprised, or you're not, Jeremy, but most people out there would be surprised, is how little data a lot of customers and clients actually have of ours when we first walk in.
Sure.
Now, if you're not tracking and you're not measuring the performance of your reps, everything is based out of emotion. Yeah. Every decision you're making when it comes to hiring, promoting, giving more leads, increasing commissions, it's not based on data, which is crazy. I'll give you an example, if I may.
You go ahead.
So I recently walked into a business that's doing over $2 million a month that had us come out because they were a bit fearful with what they're noticing. The sales are starting to dip, their no-show rates are starting to increase, and their close rates are starting to decrease. Yeah. Now, did they have data? Kind of. I looked at the data. Within 2 minutes of me looking over the data they presented, I realized everything they've been tracking for 2 years, Jeremy, was completely inaccurate. So what I figured out is they were underreporting about 800 booked calls every single month that their team was indeed having, but they weren't reporting. And because of that, their show rates, they thought they dropped from 60 to 50. Can I tell you what they actually were? They were 28% on sales calls.
Hey, we lost you a little bit. It seems like your internet is jumping in and out. You might be just on Wi-Fi. We should try to get you landlined in. If we can have maybe Isaac come back there and landline you in real quick. Okay, so walk through that again because you kind of cut it out. They were at a percentage, and then you found out they were doing what?
Yeah, they thought their show rates were at 60%, and they thought that had decreased to 50%. But what indeed I found when I went through the numbers and I peeled back the onion, their show rates, the sales calls, have been averaging about 28%. Which is significantly different to what they thought because they didn't have the right data. So that's the first thing we look at and we fix is actually understanding the numbers, because then we can pull levers based on real data.
Yeah. Tough to make decisions on what you're doing with your salespeople if you don't even have the right data, right? How do you know what to fix if you don't have the right data?
No, you're just guessing, throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping something sticks. So that's definitely the first thing we come in and fix is looking at their data and actually helping them understand their data, because it's no use us coming in or Jeremy coming in or myself coming in and understanding the data. The business owner needs to understand, or their sales manager needs to understand, so they can continue to actually manage the reps.
Yeah. 100%. All right. What else? What else do we do when we go in with these accounts to put in the right processes?
Yeah. So once we have the data, then we look at what's the one lever we can pull, the one or two levers we can pull to see a significant increase. So this business, for example, their show rates were 29%. Within 1 week, I bumped that up to 45% as phase one. So we went from 29% to 45% as phase one. Now, the biggest mistake business owners and sales managers and VP of sales make, in my opinion, is there's always 100 things you can be fixing with your sales team.
Yeah.
Right? Jeremy, you know this. You can walk into any sales team, and we do this on a daily basis. There's 100 things we can fix from a skill level perspective and a process perspective. Yeah. And what most people do is they go in and try to change all the cogs in the wheel at the same time.
Yeah.
Mistake. Reason that's a mistake is you don't actually know which wheel you change resulted in an increase.
Yeah, there could be certain wheels that are doing great, right? But when you go change them, now they go down, right? So you have to know which cog to fix.
Right. So what I identify most of the time is if your show rates are significantly down, I'm not going to come in and touch your objection handling. I'm going to say, how can we get your sales reps, rather than only speaking to 2 people each per day, how do we change that number to 6? Because the leads are already there. So like with this one business case, for example, I completely redesigned their show up process and sequence from the lead coming in to the marketing funnel to showing up on the sales call.
Yeah.
So we implemented one thing, made it simpler than what they were doing, but did it in a way that works within our methodology, NEPQ, that doesn't trigger resistance from the person seeing the ad to the salesperson calling them, which causes no-shows. And then redesign that exact element within 1 week, 29 to 45%. And that's already up this week. Now that's up to about 50%, which will get it to about 70% in another 2 weeks, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Let's try to get you landline in. I don't know if we can have Isaac or Natalia landline you in, because you're cutting in and out pretty bad back in that office. So 1 second real quick. Hey, Natalia, did we get Anthony landline in? He's cutting in and out the podcast, or have somebody help him. Okay, that's a really good process. So basically, just you fix one thing first, then we go to the next thing. So we fix the show up rates, and a lot of times, like the SDR, or some companies call them different. The SDR, some companies call them BDR. Some companies just says we have a salesperson on our outbound team that does triage. It just depends on the industry what they kind of label that person. But let's say you're in an industry that calls that person an SDR, that calls them, kind of qualifies them, books them in with a salesperson. Well, that SDR has to be trained exactly what to say, what to ask, and help them, take them through a process where they can at least help them identify that they have some type of problem. Because if they can't help the prospect see they have a problem, not by telling them, that goes in one ear out the other, okay, but by their questioning ability and their tone, that opens the prospect up where the prospect can see and feel what the actual problem is. Because once they're able to get that prospect, because a lot of times we go into these companies, or we even train, and this is like, we're talking about huge companies like Comcast Business is one of our clients. OC Tanner up in Utah, huge company. Power Solar. I mean, I could keep going. These companies do hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more, every single year. But a lot of times we'll notice when we come into those big companies that their SDRs will call leads, and they're just taught to ask, say a couple things, ask 2 questions, and try to book them on a call. And they try to get in and out in 4 minutes so they can get to more people. So they're more focused on the quantity of the call, but we start training them the quality of each call. Okay. Because if you can't help your prospects see that they have any problems, what's the likelihood they're actually going to show up to the booked sales call? Very unlikely. That show up rate is going to drop off significantly. So rather than spending 3 or 4 minutes, we might have them take a little bit more time and go to 8 minutes, and then the conversion doubles. So instead of a 30% show up rate, we now get them up to 60 or 70%. And now it's a much more qualified lead because they know they have some type of problem. And I think that's a lot of companies are more focused on call, talk to as many people as you can, quick. But if the prospect doesn't have a problem, sometimes just to get rid of the salesperson, they'll book a call, but they have no intention of showing up. Or they'll book a call, they're somewhat interested, but then life gets in the way and they forget about it. And it's not that big of a priority because that first salesperson never really built any gap from where they are compared to where they want to be. So it's not that important for them to show up to the call. So when we go in and change that, we'll have them spend maybe 8 minutes per call and to get them qualified, to help them see they have a problem, and that our show up rates more than double. We've had companies sometimes that show up rates are 80% at that point after the show. So that's one thing. What's another thing?
Yeah, from there, another example that comes to mind is one of our businesses that we recently helped out on the done for you side. So it's more about setting up the right team as well. Do you have the right amount of people on the team? We recently walked into a business and they were doing roughly around 2 million a month as well.
Sure.
But they had 60 sales reps.
60 sales reps?
Yes. 60
oh my gosh, that's bad.
And I'm like, okay, something's severely wrong here. So then when you go through, you realize they have a massive turnover of sales reps. And I wonder why. Is it possible that maybe they're not making any money because the 2 million is spread over 60 sales reps? So staffing the team appropriately, this can only be done, though, once again, when you have the right data. We walked into a business that was doing around $40K per month in front-end cash collection. This is about 12 months ago now. Now they're up to $700K cash collected.
Yeah, so and in that industry you're talking about, that's a lot of money for that industry because their profit margins are like 50%. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So we came in and we designed the sales process around the team and designed the team, got rid of maybe some of the people that shouldn't have been there, installed the right team, and then from there created a link between sales and marketing. Let me tell you this, the biggest mistake most businesses face is you have your sales team over here and your marketing team over here. And then in their weekly meeting, the sales and marketing meeting, it's a boxing match. Yeah. Back and forth. Sales blaming marketing, marketing blaming sales. So what we do when we come in, the way we solve that is we create a really good feedback loop between marketing and sales to make sure they're working together. And I know this for a fact because I used to be a sales rep. I used to be the one on the phones. Now, I know what it's like to not have congruency between marketing and sales. I also know what it's like to voice your concern about marketing and get that shut down because it's your fault as the sales rep. So when we come in and we create a really tight feedback loop where the teams are actually working together, we see within 7 days of accurate feedback from what's coming in from the sales to the marketing, we see a significant increase in lead quality, which is what you were saying earlier, Jeremy. But then also we see the teams come together and then marketing is coming to sales saying, tell me, what else do you need from us in order for you to make more sales? Now, in a financial crisis, this is super important because it's going to allow you to predict what the buyer is going to be looking at, which could prevent them from actually purchasing. We can overcome that throughout that process.
100%. Love it. What's the third thing? Let's talk about the third thing.
Yeah, so the third thing. So once you have the right data, once you've created a link between marketing and sales, then comes the training. Yeah. Which is our favorite part, right?
Yeah.
It's the training aspect. So the training, we've trained a ton of companies and a ton of sales reps, right? What is it, 150?
158 different industries. Because I thought, about a year ago, I'm like, man, we're training all these industries. Like, how many industries are we really in? And we looked at the data, and then I read this article in Forbes, and it actually says there's 158 industries. I would have thought there's 10,000 industries, but Forbes said 158 industries, and then there's subsets of each of those industries. And we're actually in all of those now. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of all over the place. So we see different companies do different things better than others. But we've even been, we even have a Fortune 100 client. Okay, it rhymes with Fugle. If anybody has ever heard of a really large search engine, we train 4 of their divisions, and you'd be surprised. Even huge companies that do billions of dollars a year in sales, a lot of times, like when you walk in there and say, hey, walk me through, like if I came to work for you as a salesperson today, what would my training consist of? And you know what most companies say, even huge companies that do billions, they just have so much leads and volume and brand coming in that they just they throw stuff on the wall and they just make some sales, just a numbers game for them. And they're like, well, we bring in the product manager and they teach them about the cloud and they teach them about this and they teach them how the campaigns work. And I'm like, no, I don't mean like the product training. I mean, like what they're saying and what they're asking. They're like, oh, yeah. We have them, they have this 3-paragraph script. I'm like, well, who's training them on like tonality? Who's training them on like, if the prospect says this when they answer the call, how are they responding? Like, who's training them on this? And basically they were like, oh, we don't have any training like that. And so that kind of opened up their eyes that maybe they were losing sales that they could be making with the right training. We got a rice rocket that just drove by the office here. So a lot of times companies just don't know what they don't know. Product training is not sales training, okay? Like in the 4 industries I sold in my 17-year sales career before I retired. So I retired in 2017 or whatever, okay? First year was in 2000. 2 of those were B2C, business to consumer. 2 were B2B, okay? In those four industries, the sales training, was interesting for sure. But in those 4 industries, I kind of learned the ins and outs and the tweaks and obviously B2B sales is even different if you sell to SMB, like, small companies, okay? Compared to if you're selling enterprise, the sales cycles are much different compared to if you're over here selling B2C, which is usually a 1-call close. Some B2C might be a 2-call close. Okay. So there's some differences there. And a lot of times, companies just don't have much training. So product, like in those industries I sold, like I'll give you an example. The first industry I sold, my first industry was door-to-door sales. I was selling home alarm systems. I didn't even know how it worked. I didn't even know, if you press this button, it does this. And people would, like salespeople would ask me like, well, do you know how this happens? I'm like, no, I don't know. And they're like, how do you sell so much? I'm like, well, I'm not selling the thing. I'm not selling them an alarm system. I'm selling them the results of what the alarm system does, which is to call the police when an intruder breaks in the home and tries to hurt the family. That's what I'm selling. I'm not selling the alarm system. And it was like a shock value. They're like, oh, that makes sense. See, that's what we're talking about. We're not selling the thing. We're selling the results of what that thing does. Like if you're Google AdWords, you're not selling them an ad campaign. You're selling them the results of what the ad campaign does, which brings in a higher quality lead, which brings in more sales, which brings the company more revenue, which gives the company more profit. That's what you're selling. The results of what that thing does, not the thing itself. So like in all the industries I sold in, you'd be shocked. Like I didn't even really know how the products and service worked. However, I was able to help my prospects find many, many problems they didn't realize they had, which built a huge gap from where they were compared to where they want to be. And they hadn't met me until 20 minutes before that. Okay, which triggered massive urgency for them to want to change now, not later. So like in one B2B company that I sold for, their average sales cycle was 9 months as an average as a company. Guess how long my sales cycle was selling the same leads? 2 months. 2 months to 9 months. Can you imagine reducing your sales cycle if you're in B2B sales from 9 months to 2 months, the type of income you make? And it's all because, and that's just, it was a 2-month sales cycle because usually about 3 to 4 weeks of that was just going through legal. Okay. So that's how you build urgency, not by having a meeting here and then they schedule 3 weeks later, then you miss the appointment because they're not that interested. And then you chase them. And then 7 months down the road, you have your second meeting. That's what most salespeople do because they're focused on selling the thing rather than the results of what that thing does. Make sense?
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And then I got another example on that. We had a bank have us fly out to train one of their divisions. Now, this bank was valued at 5.7 billion B with.
And we can't give you guys the name of the bank because we have an NDA with them. We're sorry.
Yeah, can't give you the name, unfortunately.
The big banks like that make you sign away your life when you train them. So
absolutely. So they flew us down to their office, and we trained about 40 of one of their divisions, 40 of their staff. And before I fly out, I always get them to send me two things: data and call recordings, just so I know what I'm walking into. Started listening to some of their call recordings, and what you were just saying, Jeremy, it was 1 minute of asking some simple, basic questions that mostly every other salesperson is asking, and then 90 minutes of pitching and presenting all the features and benefits of how their service works and how it's better than everybody else. Yeah. Now, I walked in there and I'm thinking, okay, I see where the issue is. Don't get me wrong, they're still making sales, but they had a really strong marketing. But how much money is being left on the table by triggering resistance that is caused by just pushing the solution down the throats of the prospects. Yeah. So we came in within 3.5 weeks. We did training over 4 weeks, but within 3.5 weeks, we're able to double their sales by giving their team specific skilled-based questions that can work to help the prospects actually sell themselves into why they wanted to do it without them even going into the features and the benefits. We reduced the features and benefits part down to maybe 5 minutes of them telling how the service actually works, and the rest of the time actually figuring out what the needs of the prospects are and like how our solution is going to help them overcome something.
Figuring out what their current situation is. We call that their current state, building a gap, right? Yeah. All the way to their objective state. Okay, what is their future going to look like once all these newfound problems are solved? So we want to help the prospect find out what their real problems are. Now, if our tone is off, if we don't understand how to use our tone in the sales process and how to switch it from a curious tone to a skeptical, challenging tone to a concerned tone with different questions, what happens is the prospect, because if you come across scripted, you've got good questions, but you sound like a telemarketer asking questions off a script, your prospect emotionally shuts down. Or if you just wing it and go off in the weeds because you don't know what you're saying, what you're asking. A lot of salespeople do that. What happens? Your prospect emotionally shuts down. You ask good questions. They give you vague or generic answers or generalized answers or 3 or 4 word answers. And then at the end, you get tons of objections because their guard has been up the whole time. So when we come in to train salespeople and companies, the first thing we do is teach them how to cause the prospect to let their guard down throughout the entire sales process and keep their guard down. Now, that is only done by how we start that conversation with our tone and the questions we ask that cause the prospect to feel comfortable enough to open up to us, go below the surface, and tell us the truth of what's really going on. And when they start telling us the truth of what's really going on, guess who they're really telling? They're telling themselves. And I can assure you, it is far more persuasive when your prospect tells themselves their problems and why they need to change and why they have to do it now, rather than you telling them they should do it now and why you should go with them. Far less persuasive. Self-persuasion is, according to behavioral science, the highest form of persuasion. We're talking by 5-10 times. That's how we've taken salespeople that were already doing well, making $250,000 a year, that sometimes now make $700,000 to $1 million a year selling the same thing. It's because it's self-persuasion rather than pushing and pushing, which always causes pushback. When you push, human behavior 101, when you push a human being, the average human being, unless they're a lay down, does what? Pushes back. That's just push, you push, they push back. So we want to learn techniques that get the prospect to pull you in and sell themselves rather than you trying to push and manipulate them and pressure them, which only triggers more sales resistance, which leads to more sales objections. And sometimes even if you do make a sale, if it's not a lay down, a lot of times that's why you have such high cancel rates or refund rates or chargebacks, because they only bought because you pressured them to buy. And then when you were gone, they changed their minds because they were externally persuaded. Whereas we teach salespeople to get the prospect to internally persuade themselves. And when you internalize it and persuade yourself, you're very rarely ever going to change your mind.
Love it. Exactly. And now's the perfect time, right? Like, where everyone else is contracting, especially as a sales rep, if you're a VP of sales, if you're running a sales team, if you're in sales, or if you're in a business that wants to grow, while everyone else is contracting, we see this all the time. Now, when we come in and instill activity and skill set, this is the time where they can make more sales, take over market share, but they need to have the right skills.
Yeah, it's both. It's your processes that Anthony's been talking about, and it's your salespeople's sales ability. Because if they keep saying the same thing they always have, keep asking the same questions, same tone, and the economy contracts, which it is now, guess what happens to your sales? They will automatically go down. There's no way they're going up. They won't stay the same either, I can assure you. The industry I was in, huge industry during the financial crash, 2008 to 2011, half of my company laid off half of their salespeople. I was never worried because I was the number one salesperson in the industry, right? Because I just had the right skills. You have the right skills, you are 100% protected. Your sales teams have the right skills, you are 100% protected. So while the rest of your competitors don't have the right skills, don't have the right processes, and they go down, guess what? You capture all that market share. And on the flip side, if you don't, and we're training one of your competitors, I can assure you it's not going to be good times for you. Okay. All right, everybody. Anything you'd like to drop with us before we get off here, Anthony?
I think we've covered a lot. So just to recap, like number one, come in, get your data right, guys. Then optimize the data. Bad sales managers, in my opinion, look at 100 things and start fixing everything. The good sales coaches and the good sales managers are the ones that come in and get the one or two things and change. And from there, creating tight feedback loops and the right training schedule. Like if you do that alone with the right skills and the right processes, there is just no way in my mind you can drop.
There's no way you can. 100%. All right, everybody. Thanks for your time. We'll be back live next week. I will be in Mexico next week at an event. I will still probably go live a few times. So we'll let you know next week when I do go live. I will go live from the event. I'm bringing our videographer team. So I will go live once or twice from the event. If you want to start acquiring the same skills we're talking about, I can assure you we are training salespeople in your industry. We're training companies in your industry that are doing 2, 3, 5 times plus what you are now because they have the right process and they have the right sales skills and ability. Okay. You want to acquire those skills? Message me directly right now. If you're in the Facebook group Sales Revolution, LinkedIn, the Facebook business page, or my Facebook, message me directly right now. If you're on YouTube, you can't message me on YouTube, so you'll have to join our Facebook group. I'll have somebody post it in there for you, salesrevolution.pro. So make sure you go to salesrevolution.pro, salesrevolution.pro. That's our private Facebook group. We don't charge you for that. Salesrevolution.pro. I think there's 56,000 of you guys in there. So salesrevolution.pro, you can join that for free. We go live in there 3-4 times a week with different Q&As, different trainings, give you little nibbles, little basic stuff. And then you want advanced training, message me directly, and you can meet with one of our team members to go through the different training options we have for your industry if you want to double or triple what you're doing right now and protect yourself financially from the recession that we are probably already in. Governments never tell you when you're in a recession until about 6 to 8 months after the recession already happened. That's what they did last time. 2008, 2010. I'm assuming it's going to be the same time. It'll be like, everything's good. And then one day the presidents of your countries will have a meeting and be like, oh my gosh, we got to save the banks. It's all following. It's Armageddon. And it'll be the same thing. History repeats itself over and over. Anthony, thanks very much. We'll see everybody next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeremy. Bye, guys.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed these, here's another you can watch right over here. Join our free Sales Revolution group. Click the link below, join us, and we're gonna help you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you real soon.